Hey guys, and welcome back to Learn With Me. In our last video, we have made a project. In that project, we made a game in which a random number is generated, and then a user tries to guess that number, and the number of tries is being counted. So it was a basic and fun game. In today's video, we'll be talking about the topic when it comes to programming. We are going to talk about object-oriented programming, OOP. Whenever you go anywhere about software, you will understand, you will hear the word OOP. So first of all, let's say, for example, if I want to make a student data, let's say we have multiple students in our class and we have to make the data stored somewhere. So we can do is, we have taken dictionaries in our previous episodes. We can make a dictionary. Let's say student1 equals to, open the syntax for dictionary. We can say name, colon, add the value you want to put. Okay, let's say Yusuf. Now we want to put, for example, age. So every single data will be stored as value and key and value. But let's say we put nationality as well, American. Okay. Now let's say that's our student 1. Now we have 20 students. So to make that kind of thing, we have to make student 2, student 3, student 4. It is a hassle to make these things. Even though if we can automate it with loops, it will still be a hassle and a very difficult thing to extract. We can put these things in an array and we have to extract. It's very difficult. So for that reason, we have the core concept about programming, which is OOP, object-oriented programming. So let's just comment this out and let's say OOP. How can we make it better? We can create a class. What is a class? Let's say class employees. But you have to write it in a singular manner, employee. Now you can give it the names, the attributes, we call it, the properties that it has. So let's say an employee can have an ID. ID equals to none, for example. It can have a name equals to none. So it's like basically for starting it's empty. Position equals to none. So every single employee can have an ID, can have an employee, can have a name, can have a position. We will say that all of these are none. After that, it can have some actions, some methods, some functions. Let's say for an employee can start his shift or end his shift. So you can define a function which is basically the function of an employee only. Start shift, this is self keyword, I'm going to talk about it in a while. We can say start, as soon as we call the function start shift, employee started working. Now this self means the object itself that we're going to create. We're going to talk about classes and objects in a while, just you have to carry on with me, okay? After that, we say define end shift. Here is self, and we're going to say employee ended working. Okay, now this is a class. Basically, this is a blueprint. This is a map, but we can use this map to create multiple buildings, employees, students, whatsoever. Okay, let's say we want to create a new employee. How would we create a new employee? We're going to give it a variable name. Let's say employee MP1, or we can basically loop through it, equals to, we're going to call the class name employee, and that's it. You see the self object, basically you created a new object, you created a new building from that blueprint. After that, the object is being called. Object is being created by the class, by the blueprint. So the keyword self is basically the object itself. So it's nothing but saying this object. We're going to talk about it furthermore. Let's just run this code. As you can see, the employee started working, the employee ended working. So now, for example, we have multiple employees. Okay, what we want to do is we want to use their name. We have something called constructors or init functions. What is a constructor? A constructor is a basic, it's like every single function, but difference is whenever we call or whenever we create an object from that class, the constructor is being run. It is the first function that will be run. So right now we made a constructor and we said pass. Basically skip. Okay. Now we can create normal objects, as you can see. But if we change, self is basically the object itself. We can say comma. We want the ID to be inputted when they create the object, the name and the position as well. It is saying 3 required positional arguments. This means whenever I'm creating the object, it's mandatory for me to have the ID, name and position ready. We cannot just create an empty class of employee and put it in our database. So we have to. So here we are saying self.id equals to ID. Basically what we are saying is take the object that you created, that ID equals to the ID that the user has inputted. The same thing will be for the name and for the position as well. Okay. Self just means we are referring to the same object again. Okay. So now that when we create an object, it's not an empty object. It is being created by the constructor that we have defined. Perfect. Now let's say we have defined a start shift function. Now here we do not want to just give it a generic output saying employee started. I want it to give the name and everything. So we have to change employee 1. Let's say 1, Yusuf and HR head, for example. Now we want that whenever we start the shift, I want it to say Yusuf started working, for example. So how can we do that? We can do that by changing the string to F string, removing the employee, and here we are gonna use the curly braces, and we're gonna say self. Self is very important, and it's just understand it. It's every time mandatory. Self.name started working, self.name ended working. And now as you can see, Yusuf started working and ended working. Now let's say, for example, I want to make employee 2 class. Employee 2, which has an ID 2, which has a name, let's say Sasha, and IT head. Okay. Now we want that employee 1 started working, employee 2 ended working. Okay. So as you can see, it will say Yusuf started working while Sasha ended working. Now let's define another function, toString. What is a toString function? It is a very important function. Okay. So basically a toString function is available in Java in every single language. It means that I want every single data or every single thing that's the properties or the attributes, which is the ID, name, and position. I want it to return as a string. So we can say f name, self.name, /n, basically the new line. We can say as soon as you put this data, give us a new line in output. ID equals to self.id. Languages do have this built in, but I'm teaching you guys the basics, so you know you can also call toString functions. Okay. So let's say we have 1,000 objects. So we can say emp1 dot toString to know what is the data about emp1 and what is the data about emp2. As you can see, okay, let's just print it because we return it. Okay. As you can see, the object 1's data, object 2. So either we can just return it or you can print it as well. It is very important. It is built in a lot of programming languages, as I said. So that was it for today. We have talked about object-oriented programming, classes, objects, and you can create any type of object and class like this. The variables, which is name, age, nationality, or ID, or whatever, while properties and attributes, while the functions are called methods, and the construction function, which is the init function, runs as soon as we create the object. That's called the constructor. That is all for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you guys learned something or enjoyed, make sure to like and subscribe, and see you guys in the next one.